Ready to elevate your credit understanding and score? With insider tips and a plan, you can take action to improving your score, which can save thousands in unnecessary finance charges. Let's tackle today's topic with your coach, Credit Kristi.
Hey friends, it's Kristi, your credit coach. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. Today, let's talk about how to improve your credit fast. So I've shared some tips in the past on what makes up your overall credit score and also ways to get your scores up really quickly, like the number one thing I'll talk about in this episode. But why not bring it all into one just so you can have a high-level overview, including tips to improve your credit quickly. So let's dive in. My number one tip is to become an authorized user on somebody else's credit card. Credit cards have a unique equation to them because it calculates debt utilization. So this is where they look at how much credit is available to you and how much is being used. But let's say you're young or you've just started building or rebuilding your credit. Basically, your credit score is generated based off of information on open and active trade lines that you have right now, such as credit cards or installment loans. And if your oldest trade line is fairly new, well, that could keep your score from being an optimal and high credit score. By becoming an authorized user, you get the credit history from the very first day that credit card had been opened. So let's say you become an authorized user of your mom's Visa card, and she's had it for 20 years. You will have 20 years worth of payment history, that longevity added to your credit profile. The coolest part is, because you're not an owner of that account, that monthly payment, should there be one, doesn't go against you in your debt utilization if you're applying for, say, a mortgage. We can back out that payment because we know it's not yours and because you're not legally required to pay it. You're just an authorized user on that account. Now, I've had some great questions come up when I teach about this, and the number one question I get is, could my bad credit affect my person that I'm asking to be an authorized user? Could it affect their credit? And no, it does not commingle your credit profiles or your credit history. It's just simply adding the history of that one trade line, that one credit card from somebody that you're becoming an authorized user on their account. That one account gets added to yours. Nothing from yours goes on to that other person's credit profile. Next, pay your credit card balances down. I see a lot of people with suffering credit scores, and it's because they have really high balances on their credit card accounts. And a big part of that algorithm is how much of what's available to you are you using. So a good rule of thumb is for it to be less than 30%. So let's say you have a $1,000 limit, at no time have greater than $300 on a balance. And to get to your very optimal credit score, you want that balance to be less than 10% of what's available to you. So another tip might be ask for a higher credit limit. Now, you really don't want to ask until you've had at least 1 year, really recommended 2 years worth of on-time payment history with that creditor. If you've had a late payment in the last 12 months, they may not extend to you a higher credit limit. But if you've had great payment history and they just haven't voluntarily increased that credit line, then you can call and ask for it. Something you need to be aware of. When you're calling and asking for a higher credit limit, that credit card company, this creditor, is going to do a hard inquiry into your credit because technically you are applying for debt. It's equivalent to applying for a new credit card as far as the inquiry from that creditor. If you are getting ready to buy a home and that requires getting a mortgage, my recommendation is to talk to your loan officer about this strategy first. If you're 6 months to a year out from applying for a loan, then this strategy shouldn't hurt you or get in the way, but if you're looking to buy a home in the next couple of months, please don't do anything until you talk with your loan officer and follow their advice, because that hard inquiry can cause your credit score to come down a couple of points. And so we just don't want to mess around with anything if you are getting ready to apply for the largest loan of your life, because that's really the most important thing. But often having a higher credit limit can allow you to have less debt utilization as long as that higher credit limit doesn't create temptation for you to go out and spend more money on this credit card. But that higher limit could help increase your credit score. It sounds simple enough, but pay your bills on time. If you're managing a lot of different credit cards or credit lines and having a hard time keeping up with it, consider setting up auto payment for at least the minimum amount that's due, or put alarms in your calendar so you don't miss it. But your payment history makes up 35% of your overall credit score. It's that important. So why do they put so much weight on paying on time? It's a reflection of your attitudes, your beliefs, and your money management skills. They've loaned you the money. Can you keep up with your side of the obligation, which is paying it back as agreed on time? All right, next tip for you is pull a credit report of your own. I will have a link in the show notes for your free annual credit report. I will tell you, if you want your credit scores, that's where you have to pay for it. At this point, we don't really need to worry about your credit scores. We just want to make sure that the information that's being reported on your behalf is accurate. So dispute any errors. I had shared a credit report with one of my clients and she says, wow, there's a couple of addresses that I've never lived at, but for some reason they're associated with my name. And so we disputed those off of her credit report. Sometimes having a lot of addresses under your name could show that you're kind of bouncing around a little bit. So even look at the addresses that are listed and associated with you. But if something is showing up incorrect, such as a payment history, a car payment showing up that you had a 30-day late 3 months ago, but you didn't, I would absolutely dispute that. Now, it really doesn't make sense to dispute things that are true. So if you really do have a collection and you dispute it, but it really is your collection, you're just wasting everybody's time. Last time I read, I think it was somewhere around 8 million disputes are heading to the credit reporting bureaus every month. So try not to cog up the system just by disputing off things that aren't accurate, but really focusing on the things that are truly something that is incorrect. Get that baby disputed off. Let's look at any collections or charge-offs that you might have. A lot of times people have a misconception about what a charge-off is. And sometimes they think that a charge-off means that a debt is just written off and it's gone. Actually, a charge-off hits you doubly worse than a regular collection account. And it's usually when it comes to credit cards. So let's say you had a Capital One credit card and you just weren't able to keep up with the payments. You were afraid to reach out to them to work out a repayment plan or something along those lines, and you just didn't get around to working with a credit counselor. And unfortunately, this balance of, $500 winds up going to a collection agency. So you'll have 4, 5, 6 months worth of no payment history that hurts you on that trade line. And now you've got a new collection. Let's say that didn't start off as a collection, but it started off as a charge-off. Here's where it really hurts you. Usually collections are listed as COL for collection or open, OPEN. And there's no debt utilization in either of those listings. But if it is listed as a revolving account, REV, which a credit card is a revolving account, if that charge-off is listed as a revolving, now you've got a zero limit because quite frankly, it's a closed account. And you owe this $500. So it's $500 against zero, not $500 against what you had open as a limit originally. And so not only is it a derogatory account listed as a collection or charge-off, but you also have that revolving debt hitting your debt utilization, and that can hurt you the worst. So while you're looking at your credit report and that history, if there are any charge-offs and it's listed as REV, start with getting that one settled or paid, because even if it's settled and closed, has a zero balance, it's going to be better off for you overall than a collection or charge off with an outstanding balance and it being open. Now, if it's several years old and you're thinking about getting a mortgage in the next 6 months to 12 months, I would just leave it alone, don't touch it, and discuss that with your loan officer when you apply for your mortgage, because it can have a negative effect on your credit score initially before it improves. All right, next tip. You can either self-report your rent, your utilities, or you can go to Experian Boost. Now, if you go to Experian Boost, it's only for Experian. It's not for TransUnion or Equifax, but you can go to Experian Boost and report your utility payments, cell phone bills, those kinds of things to start building credit if you are lacking things reporting on your behalf. All right, next tip is to have a nice credit mix. The credit reporting bureaus love to see at least one credit card or revolving and at least one installment loan. Now, if you've listened to any of my past episodes, you know I am not a big fan of debt. Even though as a living, I help people get into the largest debt of their life, typically, which is a mortgage, I'm not a big fan of saying, go out and get yourself some new debt. So there are places such as self.inc where you can create a credit builder account and it reports as an installment loan, but you're actually not taking out a loan. It's your money getting moved from one account to another account in your name, but they just report it as an installment loan. It's super cool. And then there's many self-reporting agencies out there that you can prove your rent payment or some other payments that you make, maybe like towards your auto insurance, and they can report it for you as well. I know self.inc just brought out a new program to help you in reporting your rent, so it shows up as an installment payment. And there's also a company called Pinata that you might want to check out. All right, that's all I've got for you today. Hope that these quick tips to help improve your credit happens fast for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at questions@creditkristi.com. And until next time, my friends, stay well.